All right, everyone. Thank you and welcome to another exciting event in the More series of webinars. I hope everyone can hear us okay. I apologize to the folks who joined early who had a little bit of trouble with audio, but we should be working well based on everything I can see in the chat window, so I appreciate that. You do have the option to join audio both via your computer directly in WebEx, also via your telephone. So you should see some information in the chat window with dial-in extension. So I appreciate that. So with that said, we're pretty excited about today's event. It's going to be, quite an exciting topic. I just want to welcome everyone, both the returning attendees who we see on a regular basis, as well as the new folks who have joined. And I want to thank any attendees who have passed this information over to some of the new folks on the line. Again, Joe Bapano couldn't be with us today, though you will see his name in the panelist view there. But I am Chris Corbett. I was with you last week and a couple weeks earlier on the first iOS 5 webinar, so you're stuck with me one more week, so bear with me, but thanks for joining. I also have a couple other folks from the Maz 360 team here with me to talk about the iPad 2 and the Kindle Fire. So this is kind of our second, battle royale, if you will, where we pit two devices against each other. Welcoming back Donna Lima, who represented I believe it was the Zoom tablet last time, Donna, in our previous battle. So welcome back, Donna.
Thank you, Chris.
And we've also got Jonathan Dale. Jonathan's in our product marketing department. Many of you might have run into him at various events or road shows, and John's going to be representing the iPad 2 today.
Thanks a lot, Chris, and hello, everyone.
And again, I want to thank the entire set of attendees on the line. I have to say, this is something really exciting for us. This is actually the highest registered event that we've had to date. And we owe that a lot to the growing community that this webinar series is building, and I want to thank everyone for that from an ongoing support standpoint, and we look forward to continuing to deliver a lot of good information in the future. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and jump to the next slide here. And basically what I want to do is go ahead and extend a set of thanks here by giving away both one iPad 2 device as well as one Kindle Fire device today. Essentially, you've got two ways to win, okay? So way number one is if you are using Twitter, you can tweet the message that's shown on the screen here. You will see a couple of links pop up in the chat window from Joe Bapano. One of them will be a direct link, which will actually, once you log in, have the message pre-populated to make that quite easy for you. And the other one is obviously a way to follow us on Twitter. We would certainly ask that you guys do follow us on Twitter. If you haven't done that today, we really appreciate it. The second way that you can win is by signing up for an evaluation of Maz 360. So when we finish the webinar, like we always do, we'll display a link and get you a way to sign up for a Maz 360 mobile device management evaluation, which can be set up in minutes. You'll see one on the screen as well right now, and we'll also have a follow-up email that will come through afterwards with another link. So two ways to win. One, if you do participate in Twitter, you can utilize that method. If you don't participate in Twitter, just go ahead and sign up for an evaluation, and that will count just the same.
And just a reminder, there are some folks who it looks like are still having some trouble hearing us. If you are, what we do at this point is recommend to go to the chat window, and at the chat window we have the dial-in information posted.
Thanks, John. Hopefully everyone can get joined in there. All right, so let's go ahead and set the stage with what we're going to be talking about today. Obviously, the tablet market is exploding at fairly alarming rates. I actually was reading a PC World article yesterday, and I read that tablet shipments are about to hit 55 million this year. That's pretty exploding rates for a new form factor that's really kind of taking a market by storm. And the really interesting thing is there's a ton of new entrants in that marketplace because the different device companies are seeing this market grow and want a piece of the pie, obviously. So we're seeing new devices from Apple, from RIM, from Motorola, and now Amazon that we're going to talk about today. And consumerization is real. So We've got the holiday season upon us, right? Everyone's going to go out. We're going to get fancy new devices for the holidays, and we're going to want to bring them into the office. And that means something for IT. That means something for the enterprise, and that means something to those of you on the line that are looking to manage those devices. So that's something that we will be talking about today. All righty. So to get things started, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the first poll question of the day. And this one kind of revolves around the Kindle Fire specifically, and you should see that pop up now. The poll question is, do you plan to support the Kindle Fire in your environment? It's a pretty new question, so I'm quite interested to see what the results might look like. But obviously, yes, you do plan, no, you don't, or quite frankly, you're not sure yet, and that's why you're on this, this webinar today. So we'll wait another 5 seconds or so and share the results here. In about, looks like 15 seconds, you should see the results. So it's interesting. I'm seeing them come in live here, and it's pretty much as I'd expect. It looks like the vast majority of folks are just not quite sure yet, and doing some investigation today, versus a small subset of folks that are already planning on supporting the environment. So you should see the results now in your window. So yeah, obviously about 8% of you plan to support it already, whereas the overwhelming majority, 66%, are just not quite sure yet. So hopefully, if Donna does her job properly today, she'll make some believers out of you guys. So let's get into it. Sure. All right. So round one, we're going to start talking about the different experiences of these devices, and I'll go ahead and turn it over to our esteemed guests here, and I think we're going to kick off with Donna.
All right, thanks, Chris. Hi, folks. How's everyone doing today? So I'm here to talk about the Kindle Fire. So what we're going to talk about first is what our out-of-the-box experience was once we got one of these devices this Tuesday. So my initial reaction when I opened it up, I thought it looks really nice. It's a little small for me on the tablet front, and it's a little heavier than the regular Kindle. But overall, it looks really nice. It's got a nice grip on the back of it. So from that perspective, it looked nice. So getting the initial setup, the first thing that we had to do was connect it to wireless. So I was able to get it connected to one of our wireless hotspots here in the building. After I did that, I had to go ahead and complete the process and put in my Amazon account. So essentially, once I got my Amazon account in, and I went ahead and set up the one-click settings within the Amazon account itself, which is needed for the purchasing of apps that we'll get into a little bit more. So once I did that, I was able to go ahead and start browsing. I was able to, eventually a native mail client popped up where I could set up my personal email. So you have the ability to set up Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, etc. And as I was going through, one of the first things I wanted to do was try and get it connected to Exchange ActiveSync. That's one of the things that we're looking to do here. So when I went through the native app and I put in my corporate email address and I hit continue, it then quickly told me that Exchange ActiveSync is not supported with the native app client. So what you have to do at that point is download a third-party mail solution such as Touchdown for Exchange for Android. So after I installed Touchdown, I entered in the credentials, I was able to get connected, and boom, I got my corporate email. So just one thing to note on that front. With the music, it's very, it seems to be geared more towards media. So on the home screen when you go in there, it's very Amazon-like. So you see, your books, your magazines, your music, and you can go to different places at the top of the screen. So as you scroll through, you can notice that once you go into one of them or go into the app section, it looks, like bookshelves. So it's very geared towards that whole Amazon type of thinking. The apps, so you do have the ability to go to the Amazon App Store. So there's no Android App Store on the device itself, since it is a forked version of Android, which essentially means that Amazon took, a version of Android and kind of, modified it and played around with it and made it to look more like an Amazon experience. So that being said, a couple months back they developed this Amazon App Store where you can go in and you can download Android apps, and they also offer a free app of the day, free paid-for app of the day, which is nice. So you'll find that a lot of the apps are out there today. Obviously, they're still trying to gear it more towards a tablet front, but you'll notice when you go in there, you can get your standard games and a couple of business apps, etc. Another good thing about the App Store, while we're talking about that, is that it is a walled garden approach. So that's the main difference between the Android app market and the Amazon app market. So you actually have to get approved for the app to be in their store. So it's, as some people would say, that the Android market can be sometimes a little bit, all over the place, kind of like a wild garden, you could say. So it's nice to have this a little bit more locked down so it's not as messy.
All right, thanks, Donna.
Sure.
And John, what about the iPad 2?
I guess Donna had it hard, right? The new device and having to explain her initial experience. So I'm going to talk about my initial experience on the iPad 2, and I know lots and lots of people on this phone call and lots of people around the world have experience with it. So I'll go through mine. Initial setup and out of the box was, I thought, very straightforward. I was prompted with about a half dozen different questions, and this was, I should stated this was on iOS 5. So I was presented with a half dozen questions to answer, very simple and straightforward. And then I was automatically prompted as well for Wi-Fi, which I thought was a nice feature. So I had no problem getting it connected to, I did this in work, to the guest network at our office. At that point in time, I didn't have to read any instructions. It was easy to understand how to browse, click on different applications that were already present, and in particular, similar to Donna's case, the first thing I wanted to do is get access to mail. In fact, access to two pieces of mail. One was Gmail, which has my personal preference, and get access to corporate mail, which is on our Exchange network. And so doing so from a native client perspective, I didn't have any trouble. I understood our mail settings, and what I liked, in fact, was to be able to see all of my mail in one place. So it was a very nice experience in that respect. Now, outside of that was syncing with iTunes, because I was already an existing user of iTunes, so I was very quickly and easily able to get access to my music, which I enjoy listening to. From the application perspective, both personal apps that to use, as well as business apps that such as our traveling expense system. We have got a couple other apps that are I use for business but are off the iTunes store. That was easy to set up as well. So I didn't have any problems with this thing. Literally within, I would say, an hour, I was off the ground running what I thought was set up exactly how I wanted it to be. A bit of disappointment was in the camera. So taking pictures with it just wasn't as fun. And so, hopefully, Apple improves the camera going forward, but if that's my only complaint thus far with my initial experience, I'm pretty happy with that. And, one of my favorite things is that my 4-year-old son, now this wasn't the first day, but when I gave it to him after the subsequent days, he loved using it. And I only had to show him once how to actually navigate, and at 4 years old, he was able to navigate this thing with no problem. In fact, he gets to his favorite Sid the Science Kid game, and gives me a few minutes of the day break. So that's really my experience and out of the box with the iPad. And I'm sure it's very similar to millions of others, and it's one of the reasons why we kind of love the device so much.
Thanks, John. So before I begin round 2, I just wanted to bring up a really good point that one of our good friends, Chris Hazelton, of the 451 group, brought up on the Q&A session. So, by the way, if you don't follow any Chris's work, he does some really great stuff in the mobile device realm. I certainly recommend you give that a read and search him on Google. But Chris brought up a stat that the time it took the following device models to ship 100 million devices. The PC took 20 years, smartphones took 6 years, and tablets only took 20 months. So have that for an adoption rate. And Chris, thanks for sharing that. That was really great.
Yep.
All right, so let's kick off the next with what we all love the best, tech specs, right? Let's talk about the different technical aspects of the device.
Yeah, so this is Jonathan. I'll go, and I'll kind of run down from an iPad perspective. First of all, it's not very heavy. It's just over a pound. I think most people are familiar with the size of the iPad itself and the dimensions, so I won't go there. What is nice is that it has different storage options. So from a storage perspective, if you're very high content driven and you need that content local to the device, you have the ability to scale up to 64 gigabytes. Processor-wise seems to be standard right now for higher-end devices, 1 gigahertz, dual core. And then I think the three other important pieces to kind of mention on the tail of the tape is battery, because that drives me crazy the most, and it's really nice knowing that the iPad can last up to 10 hours on Wi-Fi and 9 hours over 3G. So that's one big one. And the other, of course, is applications. You know, with over 100,000 iPad apps, it's nice to know that pretty much anything I want to look for is going to be out there. And when you go into the units sold, because of the time frame it's on the market as well as the dominance that it has, and rightfully so, there's many, many millions of units sold. So that's the tail of the tape from the iPad perspective. Donna, from a Kindle?
Sure. So as you can see and imagine, you know, when you kind of set it up against the iPad 2, it is a little bit smaller. So it's more along the lines of the size of the BlackBerry Playbook. So it's a little bit smaller, but you know, it gives it a nice size screen if you're using it for books or if you're watching TV show or a movie. And then the weight of it, it's pretty light. As I said earlier, it's a little bit heavier than your regular Kindle, which can be expected, right, because it's set up to do more. It's got a different battery, etc. So the platform, as I stated earlier, so it really is a forked version of Android. So what does that mean? So that means Amazon basically took over a version of Android and they made it their own. So when you open this device up and you start using it, it really doesn't look like Android. Sure, there's some features that are the same. You know, you have your notification bar at the top. It just functions a lot differently, and it looks a little bit different. So that's the first thing that I noticed. And, you know, the settings button is up at the top on the screen where you can set your Wi-Fi and all that, which was a little bit different. And then also another thing to note was there's only one button on the device, and that's the power button at the top, and everything else is on screen. So the other thing to also notice is that the speakers are on the top, which makes it nice because if you're holding it at an upright position, you know, if you're listening to music and working away, it's there and you're not blocking it with your hands. So the storage, sure, can't really compete with the iPad on this one. However, one of the benefits with Amazon is they also have their version of a cloud-based solution where you can store all of your music, all of your books, all of your magazines up there, and that is a free option, so you can store away. For example, I actually store all my music up there. I don't store anything locally on my device, so I can go from device to device. I can go from my phone to my tablet to my computer, and all my music is there, and I can listen to it from the cloud. The display, so it is a very a nice display, and the screen itself is actually one of the most indestructible screens out there today. So if you're throwing it, you know, in a bag, you don't have to worry about the screen scratching if you didn't get that case for it yet. So the camera, unfortunately, there is no camera on the device itself. The battery has said to last up to 8 hours, and I did a lot of research on this category, and no one out there is really giving it an exact time. Depending on how much you use it and what you're using it for, whether you're browsing or downloading movies or watching a movie from the cloud, it can really vary. So I didn't really want to say something specific until, you know, there's more usage out there in the world today. Applications, so as it goes with any Android, they're still trying to catch up in the app world. It's getting a lot better, and more apps are becoming more tablet-friendly today. So that's always a number that's rising. You can't go wrong with the price, and I think this is really one of the big points and why people want these, especially businesses as well. You can get, an Android tablet for $199 is what it comes down to. And depending on what you're looking to do with it, you get, the features that are very common, music, email, pictures, movies, etc. And it looks like approximately 100 million have been 1 million, I'm sorry. 1 million have been sold so far.
Amazon would love if 100 million was sold, but I think the sales figures are right around, hovering around 1 million to date. And I wanted to mention, Donna, you're making some great points, and we have lots of great questions coming in, which we're going to try to get to towards the end of this. But one question that I think is relevant to what you just talked about, which is the applications. So you mentioned that there's about 8,000 apps already for the Kindle. But a question came in, and it came in from David. So thank you very much, David. And David's saying, well, wait a second. Android market has a lot more than 8,000 apps. So what's going on here?
Yeah, and I think that's just because a lot of the apps out there in the Android market aren't always tablet optimized. So we were kind of going for that number. So sure, you can install if it's available, and they let you install it, but it might look messy. It's not configured for the screen size of a tablet. So that's what I was talking about. And also with the Amazon App Store, it is a walled garden approach. So you're not going to have all of the apps that are out there in the Android market. You're going to only have those that were approved by Amazon and that are up there today. So that's the main difference.
Yeah, thanks, Donna, for clarifying.
Sure.
A lot of people appreciate that one.
All right. That was a good slide. A lot of great feedback, by the way, from the community, kind of talking back and forth about their input, what they've read about battery life and things of that nature. So certainly that's awesome to see. So let's get to round 3 and talk business cases and use cases and how these devices really apply to the enterprise environment, which is probably why the majority of folks are on the line and have so many questions. So, John, I think we're going to start with you here and talk a little bit about iPad in the business world, which obviously is a topic that's been going on for months and months already to this point. So probably a lot of good information.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. And there is. I mean, it's nothing's new here, right? The iPad, from the original iPad, it's been in the enterprise now for well over a year. So, to recap on what that means and kind of look at a use case, we want to do is say for a business use case, what are some of the pros, and then what are some of the cons related to the iPad? So for me, one of the biggest things for enterprise, for business use, is the seamless mail integration. It's not only easy to set up, it's really easy to use. I mean, from everyone we talk to, from our prospects here, it's just one of those things that's delightful. The second piece that adds to the experience into a very good business use, and it's the same thing from a delightful category, it's the ability to consume content on the device. It's got a very nice large screen. You can see on it, you can type on it fairly well from a tablet device, and not only consuming the content, but also interacting with the content. I can pinch, I can pull, zoom in, zoom out, expand. It's just it's a fun way to quickly understand what's going on, whether it's charts, documents, spreadsheets. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm able to easily digest it and make use of it, be more importantly productive. When you look at the apps, I don't want to pound on apps because I think that's probably one of the best well-known features here. There's just so many apps from a marketplace perspective, from public app store, right, from iTunes in particular in the App Store. However, when you look at what organizations are doing with trying to make these devices productive for their own staff, or if it's not for their staff, but putting them in their retail stores or at amusement parks or doing surveys, the idea there is you can easily develop in-house built apps for this device. and that's not new. It's not something people are trying to figure out. It's the known piece of this ingredient for business use, and it's rapidly expanding, which folks in the mobile industry are very excited about. To round out the pros, having 3G options available to you is just a really nice thing. Based upon the business case and how your users are using the device, that option may be necessary, and you may be able to save a few bucks and then go with the Wi-Fi, but you have that choice. And then a mature and established enterprise management tool set, whether it's developing applications or whether it's trying to manage the device itself from a security and risk perspective. There's an established tool set out there. There are hundreds of vendors that can help you as well kind of make that device quote-unquote enterprise ready. Now, talking about some of the cons here, this goes both ways, but don't get rid of your laptop yet. There's very few use cases right now, or there are some, but very few use cases where someone's able to totally replace their laptop for 100% usage with an iPad. For select users or select markets, that can happen, which is pretty exciting. But for the majority of users, it's going to be a third device: laptop, phone, and tablet. Limited content creation. So folks are getting a little bit better at creating content on these devices when you add some of the accessories, such as a keyboard. So that kind of accelerates content creation. But at this point, it's still fairly limited in what you're going to want to do on the tablet. And I think a line that most organizations have struggled with today, and that's because of the nature of this device. And what we believe here is devices nowadays are really used for both personal and corporate use. There is that gray line and that uncertainty. So for business use, you are, in fact, merging your personal life with your business life. And in that use case, it can be a con. It can also be a pro. And we have our own opinion about that. And then, of course, it is high cost. Compared to alternates out there, it is a high cost. They can go fairly high up into the almost $1,000 range when you look to add accessories as well as the largest storage options and 3G options.
All right. Okay. So what about this new device that everyone's really talking about right now, Donna? And that's obviously the Kindle Fire and why many of us are here today. How does that apply to different use cases in the enterprise?
Well, I think the first thing that is going to be a pro here on our list is the low cost. So it's affordable for businesses to purchase. You're not forking out that much money for these devices themselves. The secure app market, so again, as stated earlier, it's not the Android market, it's the Amazon market, which is that walled garden approach. So you have to have your app actually get approved before it can go up into the market, so you don't have as much junk out there to kind of sift through. The Silk browser is a browser that's developed by Amazon. And this was kind of a big announcement from them. They came up with this dynamic split browsing capability, and essentially what that means is it combines the capabilities and the interactivity of that local device, as well as utilizing their cloud infrastructure, so it really gives you a faster browsing experience. With the small size, it is very portable, so you could almost, throw it. I don't want to say throw it in your pocket, but I mean it's that portable where you can kind of just add it into your laptop bag without any problems. Again, the screen helps that as well, and also the easy content consumption. So you have the ability to view and also email PDF files, Word files, Excel, etc. So let's talk about what the cons are here. So even though you get the portability of the smaller screen, the 7-inch screen can also be seen as, obviously a smaller viewing area. So that could be a con for some people. Right now, today, there's limited business apps available on the Amazon market. So that's definitely a con as well. Third party, right now the only option is wireless. So there's no 3G option, so you have to connect to a wireless hotspot, so that can definitely be seen as a con. The third-party mail client needed for ActiveSync. So today, their native mail client does not support ActiveSync capabilities. So you are needed to purchase, for example, Touchdown by NitroDesk. You can also get a 30-day trial of that, and then that is a paid app that you have to use for that. So that could again be seen as a con. And then also, there's no native notepad or calendaring that's built into the operating system. So even when I go through and I set up my Yahoo Mail with the native mail client, I don't get any type of calendaring capability. Now, I found with Touchdown, you do obviously get the calendaring and the contacts and everything like that, because that's coming from Touchdown itself and talking with Exchange. But just something to note, the calendaring is missing on personal email.
Yeah, and so since everyone really, I'm sure, is here to learn about mainly the Kindle Fire, there has been some recent questions, at least raised by folks who have these devices, related to the speed of the Silk browser. And there's been a bit of criticism, and Donna, I'm not sure how much you've followed it, but do you know what's been talked about to date? Some people are saying it's not as fast as they thought it would be.
Yes, exactly. So there was also some concern with, anything when you're doing something in the cloud. There's also that security concern as well.
Yeah. So in particular, I believe that what Amazon has stated is that the Silk browser over time and as learning users' behavior will actually speed up their experience. But in the short term, maybe it's not as fast as they mentioned it would be. So it'll just take a bit of time.
Yeah, and the other point on that as well that I was reading about, so it also it might not be as fast as you think in the beginning, because it does do a lot of trying to, based on your activity and based on what sites you go to, it tries to remember that and cache it. Again, utilizing the cloud-based solution up there. So they cache that, and then as you start using it more and more, it gets more familiar with what you're doing. And so I think that you'll see that after you use it for a while, it'll seem a little bit quicker.
That'll probably spark an interesting debate in the security and privacy realm, particularly for enterprises that want to enable employees. Now, maybe certain verticals like education probably don't necessarily care and think that's a positive, but other verticals that are highly regulated will probably be a little shy of some of these new features, if you will, until they're a little better understood, since the device is so new.
Exactly.
Yeah, and on that same note, Chris, I do think we've seen some of the early adopters saying, "Hey, we're not so sure. We want our traffic going to Amazon so they can track it." And so there is an option for you to turn that off, so they're not able to, so not all traffic doesn't have to always go, through Amazon servers. But certainly one of the benefit, if you believe in Amazon, you believe in the Silk browser, and you want a faster experience, you're probably going to want to turn that feature on and leave it on.
I'll tell you, here's an interesting one that just came in as a con, as a potential con. So for an iPad, I use an iPhone and an iPad, right, and they sync between each other with iCloud today. That's really convenient from a business standpoint. But potentially, if I want to try the Kindle Fire in my iPhone, I no longer would have that sync capability. So Aaron, who mentioned that's a great point, and something I certainly probably would not want to live without at the moment. All right, so that was great. I think we're going to actually launch into our next poll question, because we've been talking about tablets, and I'm curious, because we've been talking about tablets in a way that we're combining both business use cases and soon-to-be personal use cases here in the next couple slides. So how many of you are currently using a tablet for both of those purposes at the moment? So, personally, I have my iPad too. I'm getting email on it, but quite frankly, my vice on Sundays is I watch football and check my fantasy football teams on it as well. So how many of you are doing similar type of activities with your devices?
Yeah. And as that poll's settling out here, I want to mention still some great questions coming in, and we're not just answering them all right now, because in 10 minutes we're going to get to some of these as we step through the last few slides, especially the one around what can you actually manage on a Kindle Fire? What settings and policies can you actually do via IT? So we'll have that answer for you. but we're going to hold you in suspense for a few more minutes.
All right, and like all the time, guys, there's no way we can get to all of these questions, so we will follow up via email if we can't get to yours, like we always do. So interesting poll results, actually. It's about 50-50, given and this is a considerable sized audience at the moment. About 50-50 are using a tablet for both business and personal purposes. So, certainly there's probably some folks in there that are using it one or the other, and then some folks that are probably not using a tablet at all. So I really appreciate the responses. So let's move on to the Kindle again, Donna, and let's talk about it from a personal standpoint, since we did just talk enterprise. There's obviously, this device, I feel like it has a lot of relevance in the personal life. I could see it being used in my home, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure. So, just like with the business case, low cost, again, very appealing to the end user for personal use out there. So essentially, you can get a version of an Android tablet for, $299. So again, what you're looking to do on it, it might be the right device for you. So speaking of that, the large content ecosystem. So since it's an Amazon device, it's very Amazon-centric. So that means, you get your books, your magazines, your movies, all your media, your music, as well as Android apps and your games. So you essentially have, an e-reader that's sitting on top of Android where you can still play your Angry Birds, you can still get your email, you can listen to music, you can watch movies, all from one device. So if that's what you're looking to do and not much more than that, if that's all you need, then this would be the device for you. The WhisperSync technology is another Amazon-developed piece of the puzzle here. So what this means is you can sync all of your content. So if you have, the Amazon Cloud Player for your music, you can store all your music out there, you can store your music on the device, and that is constantly synced up. Another cool feature of WhisperSync, so let's say that I have the Kindle app sitting on my Android phone or on my, regular Kindle that I have at home, and I'm reading a book and I stop on page 27 on that Kindle device. When I go and I open up my phone and I open up the Kindle app, I'm right at the same page that I was on when I was reading it from my Kindle. So it's seamless across all different technologies, so it's constantly syncing. The free cloud storage, so again, it is free. You can store everything up in the cloud, whether it's books, magazines, music, TV shows, movies, etc. So you can have all of your media stored up there, so you don't have to worry about taking away any of the space on the device itself. Email capable, so this is a big one. So you do have the ability to set up Yahoo, Gmail, Hotmail, etc. And then we talked about from the business side of that. So it's good, you can have a device where you can read your books and you can, still be checking your Yahoo email if you're expecting something to come in there. Cons. So lack of the 3G, again, is a con for, the regular user out there as well as the business user. Since there is no Android market, so you don't get all of the apps that are out there on the Android market, so that's, another con. There's no camera. I personally don't use a tablet as a camera anyway. I just think it's kind of awkward, but that's just my personal opinion. That's what I have my phone and my real camera for. There's no GPS options in the device. And also, what we found a big one was on the home screen. So when you turn it on, you're going to be a little bit surprised, especially I was, if you're used to an Android-type device. It's not really like that when you turn it on. It's kind of like, okay, where do I go now? So you can scroll through, your apps, your recent apps that you've had open, and then down below you have the option to add favorites. So if you wanted a shortcut to your email, shortcut to, Angry Birds, you could do that. And then to actually get into all the apps that are on the device itself, you have to go up in the top right, hit, the settings, and then go into the apps that way. So it's a little different, especially since there's no buttons on it. It's all on screen. But, the limited home screen, it's not a deal breaker, but, just something we wanted to bring up.
Yeah. Donna, are you aware, you mentioned the cloud storage. Are you aware if there's a maximum limit, or is it just all Amazon or material that you would be purchasing through them?
So from what I've seen, there is a paid-for one where you can get unlimited storage, but I think that the free one was something huge. I forget what exactly it was,
no problem.
but I felt, that would be enough.
I assume it's free for any Amazon material, as they can just stream it down, so that's
exactly.
pretty interesting.
Yeah.
You mentioned camera and GPS from the con standpoint, and I certainly, so we talk to a lot of organizations on a regular basis, and I've heard a lot of business cases for camera, so that certainly may be a deal breaker for certain use cases. GPS as well is quite huge from a tablet standpoint in terms of the customers that we're talking to. So again, and we'll talk about this when we wrap up, but the more I'm thinking about it, the more it just seems so specific in terms of use cases for both of these devices, really, where things begin to make more sense.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly just acknowledge DR. DR Arthur, thanks for the feedback related to your opinion on GPS. For him, it's a deal breaker, and he said it's definitely a differentiator between his Galaxy Tab and the iPad. So thanks for that feedback, as well as Nick. Nick mentioned that a pro for personal use for the Kindle is Amazon Prime. So we really appreciate the ongoing conversation here.
And I'll tell you about, how about this one from a security standpoint from Jacob out there, talking about no camera actually being a pro, in the sense that no pictures of sensitive documents, or if you're in a secure location, potentially taking a photo of that. And clearly from an MDM standpoint, we see a lot of our customers turning off camera on the iPads at times. So Jacob, great point there. I appreciate that. All right, let's jump into, John, let's talk about the iPad for personal use now, to kind of contrast what you were talking about from the enterprise side earlier.
Yep, so the iPad for personal use, obviously, long battery life, large screen, it has a wonderful selection of games, music, movies, and I'll tell you what, TV shows, which when you look at advertising, clearly folks are dumping lots of advertising into TV shows that are online based, so it's a growing segment, and Apple's doing a wonderful job there with its offering. And what I like about with integration into Apple TV, which really for some early adopters is a great personal nice to have under the personal use. And then it goes without mentioning iCloud and FaceTime, and so very great and key offerings, just from a personal perspective, wonderful, and it's almost like, how could we have ever lived without iCloud? I don't know. I take a picture and it's on all my devices. Apple also has Music Match as well, to bring all of your music into one centralized place. And so from personal features like that, it's certainly a winner. In a cons, once again, it's that entry point. It's a high level of entry at $499. From a camera perspective, unlike Donna, I do take pictures with all of my devices, treat them all equally. But unfortunately, the iPad 2, it's not a great experience from a still camera perspective. And then adding the accessories. The accessories are so fun, but they are a bit costly.
All right. Let's move on to kind of getting past the personal use and into a real quick reminder in terms of, if you want to win the iPad or the Kindle Fire, make sure you are tweeting the line here. Joe Papano's username, at least, has been adding that to the chat room here for you to make that quite easy. So you'll see that again here shortly. Make sure you tweet it. All right, round 4. Let's talk about IT enterprise management capabilities of these devices, really what most of the people came here to talk about. And I believe we're going to start here with John again and talk about the iPad.
Yeah, so from an iPad perspective, this one, once again, iPad is fairly well known, but let's check the boxes here and then talk about the Kindle Fire, which is probably the first folks have heard what you can manage on the device. I think you're hearing it from us first. But iPad, here we go. Easy for IT to support. I think folks have found that if you've tried to manage it from a centralized perspective, it is pretty easy. Most IT organizations are comfortable with the iOS versioning, so there's not the traditional fragmentation, or in this case, we'll call it the Android fragmentation market. All iPads support encryption, so that's very nice from an enterprise management perspective to have that protection and to be able to enforce it or know that a device is in fact encrypted. And of course, we're talking enterprise management here, so the ability to sign up carriers and manage those carriers as well as the devices on a global basis. From a enterprise feature standpoint, I talked twice already about the seamlessness of Exchange support, the ability to have Office modify documents, even create documents on the device, and then for the very security conscious, the ability to manage VPN as well as certificates on the device. That is key for a lot of companies who are looking to truly do mobile device management on these devices for enterprise use. And then we talked also about the enterprise app management, which is pretty wonderful. In fact, with iOS 5, it gave increased abilities to push applications, whether in-house built or even free on the marketplace, to actually push them and remove them from the device. And so overall, what I would say is the rating here is iPad has a very mature device management support model. And so high grades on enterprise management.
Thanks, John. Okay. So from the Kindle Fire perspective, no fragmentation yet. So since this is the first version of Amazon's Android OS, a lot of it's unknown out there. What is it going to be able to do? How are we going to manage it from an IT perspective? A lot of people really don't know yet since it is so new. Just a couple of things that we found. I couldn't find out there anywhere where the clear OS upgrade procedure was going to happen. So when you get a device from Motorola or a device from HTC or a Google device, you can expect upgrades to the operating system coming. There was really no clear defined path on how they're going to handle OS upgrades. So we just wanted to mention that. Also, the corporate mail is supported today only through a third-party application. So again, I speak of Touchdown. That's what I use personally and what we use here. So that's what I know the most about and what we've used in our testing. So I just want to say there are some other ones out there, but I'm most familiar with Touchdown. So that's why I keep using that as the third party. What we found in our testing, so with Touchdown, you can get an active sync connection. As many of you know, with active sync, you get the remote capabilities to push a policy to the device, and we found that most Exchange policies will work on the device in integrating with Touchdown. What we specifically tested here is that passcode enforcement. So from the active sync policy, you can set a passcode, and just beware that that is contained within Touchdown. So and that's across any Android platform. When you open up Touchdown, it'll prompt you for that password. So we tested that here. Also, the blocking and approving of email on the device itself, as well as auto quarantine functionality. And then also we were able to do a selective wipe on the device. And what that essentially means is that it will selectively take off the corporate email on the device from Touchdown. It will take out the Touchdown settings and wipe that device.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest unknown right now at this point, is that the Kindle Fire is starting to hit enterprises immediately, right? It came out yesterday. We saw in our environment immediately. Of course, we had devices that we were already testing with, but I would bet that in a lot of the everyone on this call, I bet there are Kindle devices already in your environment from an enterprise perspective. If you haven't set quarantine rules up already to automatically block these devices. So, just pointing out there, what would you do? What's our recommendations? Donna pointed out, you do have the ability via Exchange, as well as leveraging a third-party tool like MAS 360 to be able to enforce passcode. And Donna mentioned that passcode is with the mail client. It is not a passcode on the device itself. That's not supported. At least that's not what we've found. And the wipe, which everyone wants to know about, that's the wipe, again, of mail, not necessarily a wipe of the device. It's not a factory device wipe. It's a wipe of that corporate data that's in mail, just to clarify.
One other thing to note as well, on the device itself, you can still set a device passcode. Just the remote enforcement of that is not supported today, just to clarify.
Yep. Great.
All right, let's keep moving along here, and this is where we'd like to do a couple quick votes here, okay? So this is really your chance to chime in after you've heard the facts. I'd like you to rate on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 obviously being the highest, how likely you are to purchase a Kindle Fire. And we'll start with that one. And once we get those results, and I apologize for the polls going quite quickly today, but certainly a lot of great material today, and I want to make sure we get through it all.
So I believe we're going to launch one poll, we're going to close one poll, we're going to immediately launch another, and that's going to be related to the iPad, and then we're going to go over the results. But while we're doing that, maybe we can get to a question or so while John is launching polls and you guys are participating in those polls.
All right, great. So real quick, Donna, I had a question early about getting the Kindle Fire onto the wireless network, and I guess the older Kindles had some problems for this individual user. Did you have any issues when you were setting up yours?
So I will note there was an issue, and I read about this online as well. There's a known issue connecting to a wireless network that's non-broadcasting. So at first, our guest network here is not broadcasting, so it took me a little bit of time to get connected, but I eventually did get connected. I noticed when I took it home and connected to my wireless hotspot there that is broadcasting, I got connected right away. So something to keep in mind if you are having problems, if it's a non-broadcasting ID.
All right, great. And did we get those polls shared? All right, so actually some really interesting stuff in the polls. Based on the early polling that we did about a Kindle Fire, it looks like quite a few more folks are slightly more likely to purchase one now, with a total of 38% being likely or highly likely. So I found that quite interesting.
Definitely.
And then from the iPad standpoint, no surprise in terms of it's been out for a while. It's a little more well known, but quite a few folks, well over 50%, actually close to 60%, are likely or highly likely to purchase. All right, so let's move into some quick conclusions I'd like to go through. So the first thing that became pretty evident to me as we went through this was that obviously tablets are continuing to be a hot topic in enterprise mobility. Chris Hazelton shared that amazing stat earlier. We talked about 55 million devices being shipped this year. But each device offers a different set of positives and negatives that really can apply differently across a variety of use cases and industries. So from a Kindle Fire standpoint, if I'm in the education industry and I'm looking to frankly just enable digital textbooks or allow my students to absorb content and are oftentimes constrained by budgets, that's a perfect device for me, the more I think about it. If I'm in the healthcare industry and not necessarily worried about my sensitive data, but more or less kind of replacing those laptops on wheels that go into the patient rooms to provide entertainment. Again, the Kindle Fire seems like a good constant way to provide entertainment and use cases in those environments with some basic manageability. The iPad 2, on the other hand, probably more applicable for those traveling sales reps who are delivering and editing corporate content on a regular basis, syncing with their other devices, backing up to iCloud, and require the different, more highly enterprise apps like VPNs and VDI, etc. Or just in general other industries that require a more robust set of security features. So I guess my recommendation is to evaluate your specific needs and use cases based on your industry, your budget, and what you're trying to accomplish with the devices, and consider a hybrid model, because the more I think about it, there's applicable use cases for both, and the cost difference is probably large enough that if you can supplement some of your tablet purchases with the Kindle Fire where it makes sense there, and then use the iPad 2 otherwise, it seems like a winning business model to me. And then obviously I do want to mention that once you adopt all these devices, you do need to manage them. And we would recommend that you choose an MDM platform. Obviously MAS 360 is a good choice from our standpoint, but it does provide a single interface to manage these different devices. make sure that you have role-based administrative rights so that, certain admins can have certain functions within the organization. I think that's quite key and oftentimes overlooked. And make sure that, the platform that you choose is agile in the sense that it can keep up with all of the updates that are happening on a regular basis to the mobile device environment, and we're seeing it right now. So, very good. And then finally, I'd like to just kind of wrap up and say, don't forget, the other way to enter. If you don't have Twitter, you can sign up for the evaluation. We do have, the evaluation link in the chat window for you. You can see it on the screen. Go ahead and get signed up, and we'll make sure you get entered to win. I also would like to mention, for those of you who are regulars, thank you. For those of you who are new, we are doing another webinar on December 1st. This webinar is going to be on mobile expense management, so it's actually a really, really exciting topic, and it's something that's quite new and interesting to talk about in terms of cutting costs and managing wireless expenses. And you can see the link now that was posted by Joe Papano's name in the chat window. Please sign up for that webinar. We'd love to have you back in in our upcoming conversations. So with that, I think we can take a few minutes and run through a few questions, and then anything we didn't get to, we will follow up via email. The input and questions are great. So Donna, touchdown came up a lot of times. I was asked if there was a cost for it, and I did want to clarify with everyone that it is a paid app, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, so you can get it from the market. It's $19.99 today. It's a one-time fee. You can share that throughout, so if you have a person that leaves the company, you can just give that version to somebody else. So it is interchangeable, but yes.
All right, and we had a lot of questions, by the way, about can we email the PowerPoint slides out for this. We do post the recorded webinars on our Master Center, so that will be available as of tomorrow morning, typically. So you'll be able to actually review, all the slides all over again, and we'll go ahead and paste a link to the Master Center in the chat window for you now. I was asked about Flash support across both devices here. So obviously the iPad 2 still does not support Flash. I think that's pretty well known. What about the Kindle Fire?
It does.
It does,
supports
okay.
Flash. Yep.
Great. And then I was also talked about how do you actually get these devices set up on your network? I mean, obviously from an iPad standpoint, it's something that's probably pretty straightforward, but from a Kindle standpoint, it sounds like we have to get Touchdown installed and then input some corporate information. Is that correct?
So if you're looking to get Exchange email pushed down, so corporate email, yes. So within Touchdown itself, there's settings that you can input to go ahead and get connected to your Exchange server, so yes.
So I saw a couple questions come in about the Kindle Fire and the e-ink feature. So any just anecdotal input on the screen, its look, have you been out in the sunlight? Now, we have had a lot of rain here in the Philadelphia area.
We didn't have the chance, since it just came out.
Since the device came out, so we really haven't been in the sunshine yet, but I hear it's a great feature and a little easier on the eyes than the iPad.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a little easier, and, that was a big concern, because the e-ink really it's nice. It's, the screen's still a little glary, it's different than, that other Kindle, the regular Kindle, obviously, but it's not bad. It's nice.
And we did get asked about MAS support for the Kindle Fire as well, so I did want to mention, you saw in the screenshot there, we do have support via our integration with your existing email infrastructure today, and obviously are working quite closely to more advanced functionality in the future. And, for those of you that have been with us, that means that, our release cycles are quite constant, and we're working quite hard on that, and we'll let you know. We had a few questions about the upcoming Barnes & Noble Nook. So I wonder if that's something that we should think about a future webinar for. So I appreciate everyone that mentioned that idea out there. What about app costs for the Kindle Fire? Are they relatively comparative to the iPad, the iOS App Store?
From what I've seen, I would say yes. Okay.
I did have a question about iCloud and its use of bandwidth. So I did want to mention. Obviously, it can suck up some bandwidth depending on how much data you're backing up on a regular basis. Obviously, it will default to Wi-Fi. However, if that is a concern, I believe the person who asked is in the education industry, and they don't have a ton of bandwidth out of their building. We do offer the ability with iOS 5 to control iCloud backups. So even at the the level of I don't want to back up documents or I don't want to back up photos, etc. So an good MDM platform will give you the ability to control what you're actually backing up to iCloud and allow you to really limit the amount of bandwidth utilization.
Yeah, and I wanted to, I mean, we continue to get questions coming in about MAS 360 and the ability to support the Kindle Fire, and we don't do these webinars to be self-serving, but what I will mention is, yes, MAS 360 does support the ability to perform actions such as wipe, blocking, approving, and auto-quarantining Kindle Fire, which is leveraging ActiveSync, and we do that by integrating to your mail environment. So the answer is yes, we do that, and our customers that are already part of our customers were able to facilitate that functionality before the Kindle device was actually released. So if they wanted to block it from getting mail, they were able to do so, or if they wanted to allow those devices on their network to get mail, they were allowed to do so as well. So we do provide real-time support of Kindle Fire. Yep.
All right, so listen, guys, we're a few minutes over already. There's a ton of questions still. I tell you what we'll do is we'll keep this open for a few minutes. If you want to put them in the chat window, we'll take note of them and go ahead and respond to you guys directly and get your answers out. So, but from all of us here at MAS 360 by FiberLink, I want to thank you again for another fantastic webinar. Donna, John, great information. Again, I want to thank the two of you as well, and of course our our participants out there. So, thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.